Welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a stunner of a scarf. This is the Slipped Stripes scarf. Done in such masculine colors here, it looks absolutely fantastic. You knit it with slip stitches, and that creates a very interesting pattern that will keep you pleasantly occupied as you make the color changes. This is a free pattern available at redheart.com. I'll put a link to the free pattern as well as the material list in the video description box right down there below. While you're down there, please smash that like button, as my kids say. Gather your materials and your pattern. Join me back here and I'll show you how to make this really simple scarf. This scarf is made using Red Heart's Super Saver yarn, which is a worsted weight yarn, and a pair of size 8 knitting needles. You will use 3 contrasting colors for this scarf. It doesn't have to be blues and grays. You can use any color scheme you want. You will notice that on this scarf, it does have a combination of some simple garter stitch and some stockinette, which will make it so that the scarf will not curl completely in on itself, but it does want to tuck in a little bit on the side. So I just want to give you a little heads up there. And when we start this scarf, we actually begin down here at the very bottom with a very simple garter stitch beginning. Okay, this is the opposite side, so you can see it gets this really cool look on either side of the scarf. To make a good transition from the cast on to the garter stitch, I want to show you how to do the Longtail Cast On. With color A, go ahead and pull out enough yarn that you feel like is long enough for the tail. Then we will make a slip knot. Place the tail of the yarn over your hand, take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and your middle finger, and when you come back up, cross over. Rotate your hand, go underneath the front loop, grab the back loop and off. You now have a slip knot that you will place on one of your size 8 knitting needles. Now that we have the slip knot in place, we can go ahead and begin the Longtail Cast On. For the Longtail Cast On, you want the tail of the yarn wrapped around your thumb and your working yarn wrapped around your finger. If you grab the 2 ends of those pieces of yarn, you kind of have a slingshot look here. You'll take your needle and starting at the bottom of your thumb, I call this the palm of my thumb, you will go up the thumb, swivel around to the tip of your finger, go down the finger, and then you have this little window right here that we've created with the thumb. You want to literally just swivel that needle through that window. Now let your yarn fall off your thumb and pull the tails a little bit snug, and that tightens up the stitch. Let's do that again. I've positioned myself in the slingshot. I go up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. If you need more detailed instructions for the Longtail Cast On, please go ahead and visit the Knitter's Toolbox videos that I have here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. We want to go ahead and get a total of 29 stitches cast on for this scarf. Once all 29 stitches are cast on your needle, we will go ahead and knit 3 rows. So turn your work, place your needle into your left hand and pick up your other needle into your right hand, and we will begin knitting. We don't do anything different on these rows except knit. So we will go ahead and knit 3 rows. Once you have finished knitting your 3 rows, it's time to introduce color B, and we will jump into the stitch pattern. Make sure color B is a contrasting color to your color A, and we will begin with row 4. Row 4 has a start with a knit 2. So you knit 1 and you knit 2. Now it says to slip 1 and then knit 5. When you slip 1 for this pattern, you will slip 1 as if to purl. All that means is with your yarn in back, you will slip 1 stitch as if to purl off the left hand needle. Then you will knit 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You'll notice in the pattern, this is where it says repeat from star to the last 3 stitches. So you will find where the star is, and that's right before the slip 1, and you will repeat all of the instructions after star until you get to the last 3 stitches. So if we go back to star, that's slip 1 as if to purl, and then knit 5. I'm going to hold my yarn on my opposite hand as well, so that way you guys can see. Slip one as if to purl, and then knit 5. I'm to my last 3 stitches, so I slip one as if to purl, and then I knit the last 2. And that completes that entire row. So that is row 4, which is the right side of my work. Go ahead and turn your work, and to begin row 5, you'll notice that it has us begin with purls. So we will purl 2 stitches, which brings us up to the stitch that we slipped before. And it says that we want to slip that one. So we went in as if to purl and we slip it. Now I carry on and I purl the next 5 stitches. That will bring me up to the next stitch that I slipped right there. I slip it as if to purl, and then I carry on. You'll notice that as I slip those stitches, my yarn is in front of my work. My yarn, whenever I slip my stitches, is always on the wrong side. So right now we are working purl stitches across this row, but if we happen to be working knit stitches like we will on the next row, we will have to make sure that our yarn is in front before we slip a stitch to make sure that our floats are in the correct place. I'm to the last stitch. I go ahead, finish it, turn my work, and I am not going to cut my yarn, okay? The only time I will cut my yarn is when I transition from B to C. All I want to do is grab my yarn that's down there waiting for me, my color A, pick that up, and I would carry on working in pattern. Now I'm working with color A. So with color A, I will go ahead, I will knit 5 stitches. So knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I will slip a stitch. Knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and slip a stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and slip a stitch. I'll do this all the way down the row. And then I finish off with the knit 5. As I finish this row and I set it down, you should begin to see the slip stitches that we did on rows 4 and 5. Those were green, right? So we have those ones right here. And then the slip stitches have now transitioned. I'm now slipping the color that is sort of my flamingo color. And so and that flamingo slip stitch is in between these two. So on the following row, when I come back, I will be slipping those flamingo colors as well. So you'll notice as we turn our work and we begin row 7, it has us knit 5. So knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now the instructions say YFWD, which means yarn forward. All that is saying is we're supposed to bring our yarn between our needles to the front, slip as if to purl, and now we do yarn back, yarn YBK. So bring our yarn between our needles and move it back to the back and continue knitting. What that is doing is it's making sure the float of when we slip that stitch is on the wrong side of the fabric. Let me show you again. We're to the slip stitch, so I bring my yarn forward between my needles, slip the stitch as if to purl, bring my yarn back between my needles, and then carry on with my garter stitch. I'm going to hold my yarn in the other hand, let you guys see. I'm trying to switch it up a lot so you guys can see no matter how the yarn is held, it's the same motion. Bring my yarn between my needles, slip the stitch, bring my yarn between my needles, and carry on. At the end of this row, I would go ahead, I'm going to set this down so we can take a look at it again. I want to look at it on the right side. And by bringing that yarn forward when we are on the opposite side, that made it so that float, okay, the float there, that green float, is on the opposite side and it didn't go over top of that flamingo color on this side. And that's what allows that long set of slip stitch stripes to actually take place. For the body of the scarf, all you have to do is keep repeating rows 4 through 7 and follow along with the instructions of when it tells you to do color changes. Now remember, I told you you don't want to cut your yarn in this pattern unless you're changing from color B to color C. Now that is a really simple transition, but I know that some of you are brand new and need to know how you would actually change colors, so I'm going to show you how to do that now. Let's pretend that it's time to change colors right now. And so what I will do is I will cut my tail of my color B, leaving at least a 6-inch tail. Now all I need to do is grab my color C, and this time as I begin this row, which begins with a knit 2, I will yarn over with my color C instead of my color B. Make sure you carry on with just the working yarn, not the tail. And that's it, you guys. You just carry on with the new color, let the old color hang out, and that's all she wrote. Okay, so now as you go on, I'm now working with a new color, and I've transitioned from B to C. My color A is still working. Yes, you will have tails to weave in, but you will be just fine weaving those in on the wrong side of your fabric. Once you have reached the completion of this scarf, you will finish off with 3 rows of garter stitch using color A. Just as we started with 3 rows of garter stitch, you are going to end your scarf that way. And then you will do a final row of just binding off knitwise. Binding off knitwise just means you're binding off in the traditional method. There's nothing new to it. For those of you who have never bound off before, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Let's pretend that it's time to bind off these stitches. All you will do is knit the first 2 stitches, grab the back stitch, have it jumping over the front, up and over the front stitch. Knit 1 more stitch, have the back stitch, jump up and over the front. And then you knit 1 more stitch, back stitch, jumps up and over the front. Knit 1 more stitch, back stitch, jumps up and over the front, so on and so forth. Of course, you won't have the slip stitch there like I do because you'll have 3 rows of just plain knitting, but you get the example, right? Now you know how to bind off. You'll do that all the way down the row, cut your yarn, give it a tug, weave in your ends, and you're done. Making this slipped stripe scarf has never been easier. Simply follow the instructions of knitting the first 3 rows, jumping into pattern, and then just change colors whenever you're told to. When you're weaving your ends, make sure you do it on the wrong side of your fabric. If you want to give this a nice blocking, you could do that. But once you're done, you'll be ready to wear it out that evening. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you'll run out and try this really cool slip stitch striping effect. It's perfect for man, woman, or child. And if you make this scarf, please use hashtag MarleyBird and share with me on social media, and I'll be sure to come and smash your like button. I'm Marley Bird, proud national spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns. Thank you. Everything you need to know about knitting or crochet can be found right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Learn with Marley Bird. Visit youtube.com/MarleyBird.